geography, Narendranath, it is for you. And in fact, the importance of knowing the methodology of the research or how research is done. Very interesting how research is done. And there are the first of all, the knowledge, knowing the research methodology. Research methodology and research procedure is crucial for someone getting ready for a profession in doing the research, because they serve as his tool of the trade. The ability to do the better research is made possible and by the knowledge of methodology, and which is especially beneficial for new research employee. And he gained the bent of mind. It is very interesting, or the ability to think systematically that allow him to observe the field importantly, and hence those aspire the career research must have developed the skill of using research techniques and must throughoutly the understand the logic behind them. It is very interesting. And second of all, the ability to evaluate and employ research result, the responsible confidence will be ignored with the research methodology. And other word, we might say that the understanding research techniques is beneficial in a variety of profession like the community development and social work and the corporate or government administration, where people are increasingly expect the asset of food research findings also. And knowing the process of counting research can provide one of the joy of learning a new intellectual skill, and that can change the way they practice the world and evaluate their daily experiments. As a result, is empowered to us make wise choice regarding the issue and that we face in real life and the various periods in time, and thus understanding the research methodology equips one with the mean approach life challenges with objectively. In this modern era, we are all the many respect consumer of research and findings, and we can utilize them wisely if we can assess the suitable of the methods used to generate them. The consumer of research result can be analysis the findings and made intelligent decision with the aid of methodology knowledge. And research process today's very interesting topic for young scholar. The research process it seemed to useful to give a brief overview of the research process, and before the getting into the specific of research methodology and methodologies, the process of conducting the research entitled the number of acts process the must be taken in the precise order intent and the chart and figures, and also there are the including different activities as the very important points. Number one, formulating the research problem is very important, and extensive literature survey, developing the hypothesis, and preparing the research design, and also the determining sample design also, and collecting the data, and also the execution of the project, and analysis of the data, hypothesis of the testing, and generation and interpretation, and also prepare of the report and presentation of the result. And that formula write up for conclusion the reads a brief description of the above statement. And there are the formulating the research problem. First of all, the number one point, attention please, there the formulating the research problem. It is very important. There are the two types of the research problem, such as the who is related to state of nature and those who is related to relationship between the variables. Basically, at the very outside of the researcher must single out the problem going to study and need to choose the broad topic or elements of a subject that we want to research, a generalized statement of the issue, and maybe made at first the follow by the clarification of any embroidering and before the creating working formula of the problem. It is necessary to take into account if a given the solution is feasible, and thus the first stage of scientific inquiry is the general topic into the particular study problem and formulating the research problem entailed two steps basically. And there are the first of all full gap and this issue, and forever discussing the issue with someone will help you compare better in the academic setting, and the researcher can ask guide typically experiments and man with the list of potential study issue for the assistants. And the topic is frequently presented by the guide in general term. It is together research to focus the specific and formulate the problem. It is very important. And the issue is typically flagged by the administrative agency and with which the researcher can discuss how is issue first across and what factor are involved in the potential solution. In order to familiarize himself with the choosing the subject, the researcher must simultaneously review all relevant literature review. He may examine the two different categories of the literature and conceptual literature and the to concept and theory and empirical literature made up prior and the study that comparable on the being presented. The main result of this review will be researcher ability to define his own research problem in the magnified context by knowing the what data and other resources are available for operational reason. And number two, their extensive literature review. Number two, I explained there the extensive literature review, literature survey. Basically, once the problem is formulated, a brief summary of it should be written down. It is the compulsory for a research and work. Write the thesis for a good PhD and also degree to write the synopsis of the topic and submit to the necessary committee and the research board for the approval. The researcher should now do it through a literature research related to a issue, and the first place to took this information, it is the abstracting and the indexing journal also, and as well as the published and unpublished bibliography, and depending on the nature of the issue, academic publication, conference, proceeding, and also government report, books, and must be consulted one source will invariably lead to another long this procedure. It should be kept in the mind. There are the many any part past study that are comparable to the one hand. They should be thoroughly examined. The researcher will benefit much from solid library at this point. So number three, it is very important for every researcher and also the every scholar. And basically the after the review, number three, I explain there are the development working hypothesis. Basically the working hypothesis is very important. The working hypothesis, how can you develop of the working hypothesis and the and your research and your thesis. And after through review of the literature, the researcher should clearly identify the work hypothesis or hypothesis. A working hypothesis is a particular assumption that is made to explore and test the logical or empirical ramification of the assumption. It is very important. And I also explain there are the result as they serve the main focus of the study, and how research hypotheses and are formed is very crucial, and they have an indirect impact on the quality of the data needed for the analysis, as well as the way test must be carried out and throughout the data analysis. So the creation basically for a working hypothesis is a crucial for most form of the study, and hypothesis should be very specific and limited to the space of the research and hand, because it has to be tested. And the rule for hypothesis is to guide the researcher by delimiting the area of research, and it is to keep him on the right track, and he think more clarify and result and the more crucial aspect of the issue and come into the focus. So it is very interesting. Must will comment if you are new, must will subscribe my channel. And today's I talk about how research is done, very interesting topic. And additionally, it's specific the kind of data needed and kind of data and analysis techniques to be applied. How does one go about the developing working hypothesis? So the answer is very easy. First of all, talking about the issue, basically where it come from and goal for the finding in the solution with worker expert, also analyzing the data and records related to issue and if they are available in the search of any trend, and also reviewing the study that have been conduct in the same field that have deal with the issue similar to the one and the other hand, and restricted number of original field interview that relevant fields and also the person are part of exploratory personal research. The goal is gain more knowledge about the problem, practical issue and working the hypothesis, so derived from the prior consideration of the matter, analysis of the information and also and the material readily available and including the related study. So definitely it is very interesting for the and expert review. You can see the expert review, and there are the expert and interesting peers, and also you see the it is maybe it is also as well as being reminded, and occasionally we may encounter the problem where we do not need the working hypothesis, especially in the case of exploratory for formulative research, and which is very interesting. And thereafter I explain there number 4, the preparing the research design. So preparing the research design is very important for us. There the number 4 I explain about the preparing the research design. So after clarify the defining the research subject, the researcher will need to develop the research design in which he will need to specific the conceptual framework and within the which the research will be carried out, and the creation of the such design makes it easier for the research to procedure the most knowledge and while being the efficient as feasible. In the other hand, what the goal of study design is to make it the possible to get the precise data and with the least of amount of work and expense the time. And however, how any this can be accomplished, the largely release on the research goal and research purpose may be grouped into the 4 category. It is very important. There are the exploration, number 2 there the description, number 3 there the diagnosis and experimentation, and also flexible research. So design which provide the opportunity for considering many different aspects of the problem is considered appropriate if the purpose of the research study is that the exploratory. So but when the purpose happens to be in the accurate description of the situation or association between the variable, so suitable design will be one that the minimal base of the maximum and reliability of data collection and analysis. Also there are the several research design such as experimental and non-experimental hypothesis testing. Experimental design can be either information design and also such as be before the after without control and after only with control, and before and after the control. For the formula formal design such as the completely randomized design. So it is very important out of the which researcher must select one for his own project. The preparation of the research design appropriate for the particular research problem, and involve there the usually consideration some their factor. Number one, the mean of the obtaining the information and the availability and skill for the researcher and its staff, and explanation of the way in which select mean the obtaining. It is very interesting. And number 4, the time available for the research. And number 5, the cost factor relating to research, the finance availability. It is very important. There are some Indian scholar GRF, and also there are some scholarship of UGC University Grant Commissioner provide, and determine the sample design. It is very important for the newer researcher when you will start the research and complete the research, determining the sample design. All the item under the consideration in any field of inquiry constitute the universe and the population. A complete enormous for all the item in the population is known as the census inquiry, such as the example. So there are the assume that there are no change factor left and the almost level of accuracy in the attained, but actually this could not be the case. At the time number of observation rise, even the smallest and component of the bias in such as the investigation and will become over more profound and forever unless there are the new survey is conduct or sample check are used. So very interesting. Must will comment. And the presence of degree of the bias, and additionally the kind of research take a lot of time, and sometimes not only the census inquiry is not possible in the practice, and under many circumstances, for the instance blood testing and done the sample basis. So there are different type of testing. The sample design also as known as the sample selection method. It is up to the researcher to choose, and in other words, the sample design is a predominant strategy chosen before any information is actually gathered in the other hand to select their sample from the particular population. So as a result, the idea to pick up such as there are the different phenomena and depend on your research, such as the sampling and suppose their purposive and non-probability and deliberate sampling are here the number of practice also in order different sampling also. So you can know the sample random sampling. When sometime we use the simple random sampling, basically this type of the sampling also known as the chance sampling or probability sampling, and where is and every time in the population has an equal chance of inclusion in the sample, and each one of the possible sample in case find universe and has the same probability of being selected. For example, if we have to select the sample of 300 items from universe 15,000 items, then we can put the number of all the 15,000 items on sleeves of paper and conduct a lottery. Using the random number of table is another method of the random sampling. To select the sample, each item is assigned a number from 1 to 15,000 and then 305 digit. So random number is the selected from the table. To do this we select some random starting point, and they are systematically pattern in use to the proceeding through the table. We might start there at the 4th row. Sometime we analysis there are the statistical SPSS software, and there are the some Excel data and with number. And systematic sampling, sometime we use the systematic sampling in some case, choosing the every 15 name of the list, every 10 house on the site or the street, and so far is the most practical method of the sampling. This kind of sampling is referred to a systematic sampling, and this type of sampling typically incorporate and randomize by the selecting the initial unit through the use of random category and integers. When the sample frame is available as a list, and this approach is helpful in such as the design and selection their process, and also they are the choosing the random elements from the list. So stratified sampling is very important. In the other hand, I also explained there are the stratified sampling in order to obtain the representative sample when the population from which the sample is to be drawn is not a homogeneous group, and stratified sampling technique is used. In this method, sample items are chosen from each stratum once population is divided into the number of district, non-overlapping and subpopulation of the strata. If the sample sampling is used to choose the item from a stratum, there are the stratification must come first and follow there are the different sampling. So quota sampling, sometimes the researcher use the quota sampling. I also explain this sampling, and basically quota sampling in stratified sampling, the expense of taking random sample from individual strata is frequency so high that interviewer are merely given quite to fill from the various strata. And with the interview describe there are the leftover for actual selection of item for sample. It is known as the quota sampling, and each stratum quota is specially typically proportion, and also therefore quota sampling is a crucial type of the non-probability sampling. In the contrast of the random sampling and quota sampling are typically there the judgment sampling also called. And clustered sampling, you know, the clustered sampling and the area of the sampling. Cluster sampling and the service growing up the population and the selecting the group of clustered rather the individual elements of the inclusion in the sample. And suppose some determinate the store and wise the sample is credit card holder, it has issued there the card 15,000 customer. The sample size is up to also keep out there the 450. So cluster sampling, this list 15,000 card holder could be formed into 100 clustered of 150 card holder each. So it is very important, and 3 clustered might then be selected for the sample randomly. The sample size must often be larger, and then the sample random sample to ensure the sample level of accuracy, because is cluster sampling procedural and the potential for the order base and other source of the error is usually accounts. The clustering approach can however make the sampling. So it is very interesting procedure, relatively easier and very increase the difference and the efficiency of the field work. And also especially, you know, area sampling and which are somewhat similar. The cluster sampling is frequency brought up when the overall geographic area and the in interest is the significance in area sampling overall region is fast divided into the number of similar non-overlapping area commonly referred to the geographical cluster. A number of this similar area are then the randomly chosen, and all units in the teeny area basically are included in this sampling. In case where we don't have a list of the people of the question, and there are the sampling is especially useful, and since the interviewer can do numerous interviews as one at one location, it also increase the efficient of field interview also. So multi-stage sampling is very important. Next I explain there are the multi-stage sampling. The concept of clustered sampling has been developed further by this method is intended for using the inquiry and covering the sizable wide geographical area and such as the whole nation. The first stage of multi-stage and the sampling procedure can involve the choosing the sizable primary sampling unit such as the states, such as the district, such as the town, and there the particular household within this town, and when the random sampling is used to throughout the sample process. It is referred to multi-stage random sampling. So it is very important. And also I explain the next another very interesting topic, the sequential sampling. Sequential sampling, this sampling design is a little complicated because the final sample size is decided the mathematically based on the data collect. It is as the surveyor goes on rather than being the established in advance, and this design is typically used in the conjunction with acceptance sampling plan when the statistical quality and the quality control is being practiced. So it is very interesting, and also very interesting there the collecting the data. Collecting the data when tackling any real world issue, it is the frequently discovered that is the data hand insufficient and also necessary the collection is the more suitable data, and there are the various method for gathering the collect, and data are they all have different cost into term of time and money and also other resource, and that a researcher can use. The two method of gathering primary data are experiment and surveying. It is very important. And then when a researcher conducts an experiment, he record the quantity measure or data that user the evaluate, and also he validity of his hypothesis. But it is the case of a survey that can be collected by any one or more the different data such as the observation. This is the approach. Basically observation, I explained about the observation. This approach suggests the information will be gathered by the investigator on the observation rather than the through speaking with the other respond. The information gathered is relevant to the present and is not the complicated by the respond past action and future intention. So it is very important. Dinesh Kashyap, welcome. And it is very irregular. This approach is basically inappropriate for the study and involving the large sample. So through the personal interview, the investigator followed the static process and used the person interview to the gather information into address set of the procedure question, and this approach of gathering data is the typical conduct in any systematically manner where output greatly depend on the interview skill. And so there are the next I explain this point through the telephonic interview. About the telephonic interview, sometime this method or information the gathering entitled calling the respond directly, and although not very common, and this technique is crucial for the industrial survey in the industrial countries, and especially when there is short window of time to complete their survey. And next another point I explained there the mailing of questionnaire. I also provide there another video questionnaires. Must will video is my another video questionnaires, and just my explain at present now the questionnaire. If this approach to surveying is used, the researcher and the respond do indirect the respond receive and the questionnaire in the mail, and with instruction to return them, and once they are finished, and the majority of economic and business and survey use this telephonic and techniques also. And before using this method, a pilot study is typically conducted to set the questionnaire, and which identify any shortcoming in the questionnaire may have the questionnaire that will be utilized need to carefully construct, and also it is successful the gathering necessary data. So it is very important, and must will live chat, must will comment. And next another point, it is very important for new researcher, and if you want to research, if you want to thesis writing, and there are the two schedule. Basically schedule the numerous are chosen the trend using this manner, and schedule with different question and create and list of create, and one basis of the response provided by the respondent, and enormous complete our schedule and gathering the list of questionnaire, and that should be very important for your research writing. And next I explain the analysis of data. Analysis of data, basically the researcher then being the process of data analysis after the data have been gathered a variety of closely connected process and necessary for the analysis of data, including the creation of the categories, the application of those category to raw data, and through the coding and tabulation also. And the drawing the statistical judgment, and for the furthering examination, the voluntary data must necessarily be reduced to a small number of delegates. It is very important. And grouping and table. As a result, the research need to group the raw data and into some useful categories, and this is obtained the stage where the data category are convert into symbols. So they have to tabulate and count it at this point device can be used. So computer not only help you save time, but they also enable you to investigate several aspects and that affect a topic at once following the tabulation. Analysis work is obtained based on the use of several well-defined statistical equation to compare the various percentage and coefficient, and also the test of significance should be applied during the analysis process of any association of the difference that support or contradict the novel original hypothesis, and in order that determine have the validity any conclusion, and that may be drawn from the data. For the instance, there are the two sample, and weekly there are the earning a sample being the chosen from factor various location and within the same city, that providing two different means value. So delimited there are the different question maybe whether two means value are statistically different, whereas the different is only due to change. And for example, if there are two sample of weekly earn, each sample being collect from the industry and different area of the same city, so we can determine the whether such difference is real or consequence of the random fluctuation by the using statistical tested. So very interesting. And also I explain the first of all know about there are the tell us yourself when we will take the interview, and I also explain there are the some points for the essential how research is done. So actually first of all आप पहले से सुनेंगे ताकि आपको जो भी हमने बताया सिस्टमेटिकली वो आपको याद हो जाएगा. There are the many points systematically I talk about. There are the different parameter how research is done. So definitely this lecture for your thesis writing and for your analysis and for your summation of the dissertation paper, that will be help you. Thank you very much. And if you get more information, must send you mail to my mail address and my description video. So thank you very much. Thank you to all.